Well, here we are back in the basement again. Yes, again. And look what just showed up. I've got the 2-meter E-Flite version of this airplane, and I like it so well I decided to get something a little smaller and a little easier to transport. And I've read a lot of great reviews about this FMS version. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to put this thing together, and we're going to film anything that looks a little sketchy. I'm a little bit concerned about the way the radios are going to get hooked up. I'm going to put an AR637T or TA in here. I'm not quite sure which one, probably the T. I'm going to put a GPS in it, and I'm probably going to swap out the ESC for a Spectrum telemetry ESC as well. So I'm going to unbox it. I always think it's kind of silly when people unbox stuff and waste your time looking at it. Anybody can cut tape and take parts out. We'll get all the parts out of here. We'll take a look at them real quick, and then I'm going to start putting it together. I hope it won't take very long. And if I sound a little raspy today, it's because I was in Canada last week and brought home a little gift from Canada, in case of COVID. And I'm on the mend, but I'm still not feeling 100%. It was a beautiful morning this morning and yesterday morning, and I had to sit at home trying to convalesce. Hopefully by the end of the week I'll be back in action again. So here we go. Okay, everything's out of the box. Nothing unusual at all about getting everything out of there. The parts are all laid out here. I'm going to have to put the prop together, which is a little bit unusual, but yeah, it should be easy to do. A couple of things I've noticed already. One, as some other reviewers have pointed out, this is not a cheap airplane, and it's got foam hinges, which is a bit disappointing actually. I would have expected, I shouldn't have expected, I already knew it when I bought it, that this does not have pin hinges or any other kind, anything other than foam for the elevators, flaps, and ailerons. Strangely, the rudder does appear to have hinges on it. But everything's, before it flies, everything is going to get a coat of glue on those hinges, a flexible glue, probably foam tack, just a little thin coat on one side to reinforce them a little bit. That'll add a little bit to the time it takes before we fly it, but let's get busy and start assembling and see if we run into any rough spots. I'm not going to just film the whole thing because it's pretty straightforward if you've ever put a foamy together. A bunch of screws to put in, a few more than normal, and also the linkages are not hooked up already on anything, so I'm going to have to put all the servo linkages on and then true everything up. Well, okay, I'm back again, and I have run into some problems. I would love to run a 6S battery, and the smallest one I have is a 3200, and it doesn't work. There's not sufficient clearance between the bottom of this canopy and the top of that battery for it to work. So it's even got an EC5 connector for the ESC, but unless I make some significant modifications, that is not going to work with a 6S battery. At least one I have here, I may have to buy another 6S battery. It's a little smaller. I'd love to run it, but it says it'll run on a 3S or 4S, but 6S probably a lot better. Another minor issue is that there's supposed to be 130 millimeter and 140 millimeter length in this screw that fastens the vertical stabilizer on. Both of them I have are 40 millimeters, the ones I have left. Right here, same length, so I may have to cut one of those down. We'll take a look at that in a minute. Other than that, everything seems to be working fine so far. I've got the receiver connected and bound and the GPS unit on it. All I have to do is mount it back here and then program it. Everything there looks good. So it's going to be mounted back in here. Only place it will, because I can't mount it in here because there's not sufficient clearance between. Well, I don't think I can. Let's see. I'd like to put it on this shelf here. I don't think that's going to work very well. Well, it will. Okay. All right. I can put the receiver right here on this shelf. Right back there. Perfect. Now, that'll work really well. That way I won't have to be messing with it back in the back there. And that'll give me plenty of room to put the antennas up here below the canopy. Okay. Let's see. Let's get back to work and see if we can get this thing. All right. We got the radio in and the GPS is in. I tried putting the radio along this area here, but that just did not work out. I couldn't get all the wiring and the antennas positioned very well because I have the battery here and this wire here that can get in the way of a good reception situation. So I wound up using Velcro, putting it back here in the back. It's the 637T. And it's all hooked up. I'm going to clean this wiring up a little bit. Next up, we're going to be installing these linkages on the ailerons, rudder, elevator, and flaps. And then put the wings on, which connect right here to these two handy little plugs. And crank her up. Check out the surfaces, check out all the programming on the radio, including safe, AS3X, orientation, all that good stuff. Make sure everything's working right, including the landing gear, and everything's all nicely centered up and ready to go. No real issues here, other than not being able to fit a 6,000 battery in here. So I use this, for now at least, this handy little adapter plug that takes a ES5 down to an ES3 plug. There we go. I've left, for now at least, the 80 amp, what is that? A Predator, 80 amp Predator ESC in here, which means I won't get any voltage, the telemetry, but that's okay. At least for now. I've got a really good spectrum I might put in there later, but just for now I'm going to leave that in. Okay, so let's finish getting this thing together and check everything out and make sure it's all working okay. And there she is. 4 screws that hold the wing on with the straps on the bottom went in very easy. Tighten them down. You do have to make sure that these 2 wing connectors come up here where you can get to them. That was easy. And the rest of the wiring down there, I put a couple of wire ties on it, or wire ties on it. Those excess wires that come off the controls and the lights, to bundle them up a little bit. You might be able to see them down in there. Probably not. They fit into that cavity down there above the wing, between the wing and the fuselage, very nicely. So we're going to put the connectors in, power it up, lower the gear, and start checking stuff. Well, all together, gear down. The nose gear didn't actually come down on the first try, but I think one of the doors was a little bit wonky and I had to give it a little push. So all the lights are on, control surfaces are all working correctly, except for the flaps, which I'm going to have to reverse and make some little adjustments. But obviously, if you look back here at the elevator, it's going to need a lot of adjustment. The rudder, I think, is pretty straight. The ailerons are going to get tweaked just a bit. I think I'm going to have to tweak one of these flaps too. So for that, we will turn her over on her back and put her in a stand, and then off we go. Everything nice and neat inside. I love those little connectors. Those are going to be great. This thing's going to be very easy to take apart and put back together. Just 4 screws and a couple of cable connections and you got it. So now we got to do some programming on the AR637. Otherwise, I think we're about ready to go. And before we get to work here, let's take a look at the detail on this gear. I really like this. You got doors going on. And they got some spring to them. Really nice. Really nice. Probably going to be a little noisy. And they're hard. These are plastic. They have very little give to them. These are not soft wheels. Okay, well, I'm going to go center up all the controls and start programming the radio. I just noticed there's a problem with this gear door. There's a pivot point down there right in here that this little device is supposed to be screwed into. The screw's missing. So we'll have to see if we can fix that. This is disappointing. This flap servo here is overheated and is locked up. Why? I don't know. But this will need a little investigation, obviously. I have no idea. It worked once. Flaps are nice and free. That servo has gone bad. So, FMS, you're going to have to help me out here, I think. Okay, back. Actually, next day, because by the time I got done on the phone with FMS, it was time to wrap this up and go do something else, like mow the yard, and then have dinner. So anyway, I called FMS and amazingly actually got a live person on the phone within about 3 rings. And talked to this nice gentleman, and they've agreed to send me a new servo, but it's going to take 10 to 14 days to get here from China. So I got on Amazon and found the exact replacement. So when their servo shows up, it'll just be a spare. It was only, I think, $12. So I've got the replacement on the way. It'll be here early next week, which is great because I wanted to take this airplane out to my favorite flying field for an event on the 10th. It's a benefit for a local veterans organization, and I wanted to participate in it, and I wanted to bring this new airplane out there and show it off. So let me step up behind the camera and show you what the problem was with this servo in a little more detail now that I've got it out of the airplane. I've got the servo hooked up to my little test bed back there, and it's this one right here, and it's hooked up to the elevator port on the AR637 there in the background. So watch this. That's full down. Watch it. When I move it to full up, full down again, full up. So as you can see, that's neutral. It's not behaving very smoothly. I've never seen a servo do this before, but obviously this one's bad. Okay, all finished. I had to manually set up every single control on this airplane, which is, if you've ever bought an E-Flite model, and I assume most of you have, they come with controls more or less centered right out of the box. This one, all those controls have to be hooked up, all these surfaces, manually, and they all need adjusting. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 of those, and the nose wheel, 7 that have to be manually centered up. And that takes a while. If you look on the nose of the airplane, I also checked the deflection angles on the surfaces, and you found out that if you use the suggested control rod surface control settings on the horns and the servo arms. Those don't work. Some of them give you too much throw, some of them give you too little throw. Not that that's really critical, but what I found was you have to actually manually measure these. In particular, the settings on the rudder gave me about half throw that I should have had, so I had to change both the position on the horn and the position on the arm to get the amount of throw that was suggested for the rudder. The ailerons, I got too much throw and I had to adjust those down. I also figured out how to get that 3200 milliamp Spectrum battery to work in here. That was actually pretty simple. I'm going to take this off. If you look under here, there was a wooden strap that fit across here and fit above or below, actually below, the surface of this canopy. It was 2 or 3 millimeters thick too, so I took that off, took the screws out one at a time, put washers behind them, and tightened them up into the foam to the point where the heads of the screws are down below the bottom of the canopy. That got rid of that interference. It didn't take much. I knew it wouldn't. Before I did that, this canopy would almost fit. I could press it down and fit it, but it was obvious that the minute I hit some turbulence, it might pop off because it wasn't fitting good and tight. Now it is. And I've got the straps are down. I've checked the CG. It's maybe a couple of millimeters forward of what they suggest, but I think it's good enough. So next thing up, I'm going to take it out and fly it as soon as the new flap servo arrives, and I get that installed. That won't take long. It's got a lot of thrust with this 6S battery in it. I don't know if I wasted my time. It may be I've got too much power for this little airplane, but we'll see when we take it out. All that may mean is I need to dial back the throttle throw a little bit to something less than 100% power at max. But I'm almost afraid this thing might torque roll inverted if I just throw the throttle full open on takeoff with that 6S battery in it. But they do say a 3200 6S battery will work in this airplane, and it is set up for it. The ESC has number 5 connection on it, EC5 connection for a 6S battery. So I assume, and it is an 80 amp ESC. So can't wait to get this little bird in the air as soon as that servo gets here and I can get it installed. If you like this video, comment, like, subscribe. You know the routine if you watched a few of these. And liking and subscribing is important to raising the visibility of any YouTuber's videos on a search. So if you like this and you want other people to see it, give me a like and a subscribe. That'll really help. So have a great rest of your summer, and thank you as always for watching. Goodbye.